Welcome to the Parts and Labor Motorcycle Podcast. It's brought to you by Biltwell Inc. We're going to dive deep into anything motorcycle related. We're going to introduce you to some of the most interesting friends we know, and we might even try to solve a problem or two. You got a question? That'd be cool. Send us a voice recording or an email. pod@biltwellinc.com. pod@biltwellinc.com. Otto here. We're in the Parts and Labor podcasting studio in beautiful Temecula, California. I'm here with my friend and motorcycle industry co-worker, Casey from Cafes Customs. Casey?
Hi. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming out. We got a couple questions I put together for you, Casey. Everybody probably is familiar with Casey. If you're not, he's kind of the go-to guy for new bike tuning. Twin cam and later, I would say.
Yeah, twin cam later, twin cam and Milwaukee 8s are what I specialize in.
Yeah, he's now I think at this point, twin cams are kind of old. He's the M8 guy, Casey is. He's got an eye for detail. Some would call it OCD. I've brought him a few bikes. They always come back with a few more things fixed than he had talked to me about. So he's the king of the upsell. Just be careful.
Yes.
But he knows his stuff. So he's got a shop here in Temecula, California. It's called Cafes Customs. If you didn't know, you can follow him on Instagram.
Yep, Instagram.
Cafes Customs.
Yep.
Cafes Customs. So your name's Casey. What's your last name?
Fernandez.
Fernandez. Okay.
That's where the cafe comes from. It's an acronym for my first and last name.
Okay.
First two letters of each. They were like my work order initials when I worked for the dealership.
Okay. Cafe. So
I'd always sign my work orders Cafe, and then it kind of just evolved into what it is now.
Yeah. Speaking of the dealership, that's where I met you. Dealership. He was you.
Actually, we first met at the BMX track.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, my role at the dealership when I met you, I was a parts manager.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I seen him at the BMX track with his kids, and you were on your bike too, I think.
No, just my kids were out there.
I was riding in very slow, old man style. But yeah, I seen Casey there, and then buying parts at the local Harley dealer. Got to be friends with him. Rarely do you go to the parts counter at the Harley dealership and have the guy behind the counter like motorcycles or know anything about motorcycles or want to offer you advice about motorcycles. Usually it's the exact opposite. They treat you poorly, they charge you too much, and they've never ridden a motorcycle in their life. So when you meet a guy like Casey who's actually in it, you kind of cozy up to him. And I know that's what Rob, our mechanic Rouser, did, and that's what I did. Anytime we would go there and we'd see Casey behind the counter, we were pretty excited because we knew we were going to get what we wanted, and you understand, even if we weren't doing our best at telling you what we needed, you were able to kind of fill in the blank. So
yeah, and try to upsell you.
Yeah, and try to upsell. It didn't work so good at the parts counter, but it works when you got my bike hostage. So, how long have you had this OCD? Is this a new thing in the last few years, or when you were a little kid, did you have OCD? Speaking of little kid, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Tucson, Arizona.
Tucson. Tucson is how the locals pronounce it.
Yep. So I grew up there till I was about 18. Then I moved to Phoenix to go to MMI, and then in 2003 I moved out here to Southern California.
Okay. What brought you out here?
Got a job in San Marcos at Biggs Harley, and just chase the sunset. I always liked taking trips out to California and enjoyed the weather and the environment, and just figured it'd be a good spot to have year-round work. Yeah,
you were right on most of those things, I think. You went to MMI, you said 2003?
2001 is when I first attended, and I actually went there for all the import bikes like the Yamaha, Kawasaki, Honda, Suzuki. And then 2 weeks before graduating, I signed up for the Harley classes because I'd been hanging out with some kids in the Harley classes and realized the simplicity of a Harley and didn't know how much people like to decorate them with chrome. I was kind of just more into like the performance side of the import bikes, and never went to school for with the intention of working on Harleys, but kind of just transitioned over to the dark side, as they called it.
So you started at M&I working on Jap bikes or learning about Jap bikes. Did you do stuff then? You got into Harleys? Did you formally educated in Harleys too when you were there? You changed over? So that's early 2000. So it was twin cam era. The Evos had just been phased out.
V-Rod just came out.
The V-Rod just came out, so the Harley's like first water-cooled bike, they started to get a little quicker.
The Buell XBs were coming to life with the aluminum frames. The Buells are actually a big draw for me because while I was going to MMI, and even before I started MMI, I was working at like metric dealerships. So just getting my feet wet, like working there. And then I also worked at this metric shop / jet ski shop, and then the Harleys just started working on, like when I actually got a job in the dealership after getting the formal education on them.
So tell me about this first job working in a motorcycle shop, not a Harley dealership, because I think you've told me the story before. Your first industry job.
Oh, yeah. So I was literally fresh out of high school, just turned 18, got a job at the local motorsports dealership. And
so it's motorsports. They sell kind of everything.
Jet
skis,
jet skis, street bikes, dirt bikes, quads. Like
side-by-sides hadn't been invented yet, so they didn't sell those really. But they sold everything else.
Yeah, and within the first 3 hours, I had to move a Suzuki TL 1000, and when I was moving it, I dropped it, caused $1,600 worth of damage, and just started grabbing a broom and sweeping the floors because I had to earn my keep.
Yeah, so you just started from the ground up, literally, picking a bike up off the ground and cleaning the ground, and now you're kind of the king of the performance tuner here in Southern California. One of the kings, I'd say.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that because, I still feel like I got a lot to learn. But, man, it's awesome how well people speak of, what I do for their motorcycles.
Yeah, you come highly rated on Google and
love those
on
Google
Instagram.
Reviews. Yes.
Casey loves him some Google reviews. He's big on the Google reviews. He said he has a goal this year to hit 200 Google reviews. Where are you at right now?
Currently at 165.
Oh, man, you'll hit that by the end of February, I imagine. Warms up, people drag their bikes out, and they'll bring them over to Casey's, get them all tuned up for the springtime.
Yes. If I've ever worked on your bike or given you advice, please go leave a Google review.
Please do it. All right, so you started this power sports shop, then MMI, ended up in some dealerships. Back up just a little bit. So you grew up in Tucson. What was your first recollection of a motorcycle? Like, what do you see some kids riding dirt bikes in the neighborhood? Did you live next door to a club guy? What's the story on that? Your dad have bikes?
No. Dad didn't have any bikes. And one of my friends, they got a dirt bike. Like I think when I was like 11 or something like that. And he was my best friend. He got a dirt bike, and the moment I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. And then like a couple days later, his dad got some quads, and I went to my dad and I was like, my friend Jack got a quad. Like, I want to get one, and then, I was able to get one. And then once I realized, the power of a motor and everything, I was hooked because prior to that, I was into bicycles like BMX, mountain bike. But yeah, once I got my first taste of a throttle and realized you could go fast without having to pedal, it's like all I wanted.
Yeah, I think that's how it happens. If you're a kid, Flynn grew up on a BMX bike. I did too. You're kind of, you get tired of pedaling, or you just wanted to go faster, and so motorcycle is the natural progression. I remember when I was a little kid, I would ride in the car with my mom looking at motorcycles, guys on motorcycles, thinking, one day my mom was like, sit down, shut up. You ain't never going to ride a motorcycle. And I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to ride one now because you told me not to. But it's just you're a little kid going, you're just like, that's a bicycle with a motor.
Yeah.
That looks great.
Yeah, no, the adrenaline rush is always a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Just going fast and, going up steep hills. Or I did a lot of desert riding, so that was like my background.
And in Arizona, there's a lot of desert riding. Probably some really good fast stuff, actually.
Yeah, and then I transitioned into a little bit of track riding on the motocross tracks, and then I got into the street riding.
Okay. So dirt bikes were the gateway drug.
Yes.
Yeah, I got you interested in learning more about them, wrenching a little bit. Were you wrenching as a little kid? You know, when you're a young man,
Yeah,
were you
'cause
picking up to work on your own stuff, keep it on the road?
Yeah, I'd crash it, so there was always parts to be replaced, and could barely afford the parts to replace, let alone pay for someone to replace them. So yeah, just I've always my dad had a ton of tools, so it was just easy to like get the parts and then actually just work on it myself. And then I can remember being like 16 and just customizing my quad a lot, like chopping stuff up, relocating switches, all sorts of that kind of stuff. Because prior to getting into the motorsports, I was kind of big into RC cars, so did a lot of like wire soldering as a kid and replacing the motors on RC cars or building batteries and stuff like that. So it was just kind of, I don't know, wiring something I've always enjoyed.
So it just progressed,
Yeah.
from putting together
From Legos to RC
RC10
cars. Yeah. Yep.
to dirt bike or quad, and then getting into more bigger bikes for bigger boys.
Yes.
What'd your dad? You said your dad had a bunch of tools. What'd your dad do?
He worked at a mine for most of my childhood.
Okay.
But he just, always just had a garage full of tools, like just more of a hobbyist,
Okay.
So, but lots of mechanics tools. So
But that was encouraging for you when you wanted to take on something.
Yeah.
You had the tools there, and maybe someone to tell you that you did it wrong or whatever.
Yeah, or just even, like the part would show up and I didn't want to wait for him to get home to put it on. So I would just like try to do it myself.
Yeah. Okay. So first motorcycle recollection, dirt bikes, gateway drug. You mentioned earlier Buells. I was going to ask you, like, what do you think your favorite motorcycle is? Is it a Buell still to this day? I know you're a big Buell aficionado. I know you have FXRs too, but you also love your dyno.
Yeah, but I would say my favorite motorcycle that I've owned was a 2006 Buell Ulysses.
Okay.
That was like kind of like their adventure Buell.
Yeah.
It was just a really tall chassis, tons of lean angle. It could take it down like some dirt roads, no problem. Lots of suspension on it, and I don't know. It was just like such a utilitarian bike, but you could carve canyons. You could like go down the fire roads.
It came with like an enduro tire, right?
Yeah.
They had the yellow lights, a lot of them.
No, it didn't come with too much of the extra lights, but I did add some extra lighting to it. Kind of set it up pretty ADV like, but it was also something I could cruise, state to state on. It was just so comfortable and just like lots of power, just very nimble. I don't know. I love that bike.
Obviously, that wasn't the first adventure bike, but it was the first Harley adventure bike, kind of, more situated towards a dirt. People would argue you put a dirt tire on anything, a Sportster. Obviously they've been racing those, but that was something like more purpose built towards a guy that might take it off road a little bit, but still want to ride to a cool location. So much like modern adventure bikes, one size fits all for kind of any type of thing you want to get into. A little bit of street, a little bit of dirt, within reason. Those bikes let you do it. So in some ways that was, now Harley's out with these Pan Ams, which are pretty capable, pretty cool motorcycles. But they were a little ahead of the curve in that, ahead of their own curve, because other companies, Honda's been making them forever, but they had an offering, for guys that wanted to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, that
and
bike.
Now they double back
so
to it.
Good.
Yeah, so you'd count that as your favorite?
Yeah, and it was the one that got away, like the one I wish I wouldn't have sold, Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got a few of those. I know how it is. Sometimes you got to pay the bills.
Yeah, I only got rid of it because I had too many motorcycles at the time. So, and I like my Harley addiction probably started, maybe like, when was it? probably like 2013, maybe 2015-ish, because first 10 years of working on Harleys, I never like really owned like a traditional Harley, like a Sportster, Dyna, Bagger, any of that stuff. I was just into the Buells or the V-Rods. Those were what I owned. And then, yeah, I think,
V-Rod's ugly as sin, but fast as heck.
oh my gosh,
So
so good.
fast.
Such a good bike.
Yeah.
It's a two-wheel Porsche.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's designed by Porsche, right?
Yeah, had
Yeah.
some Porsche engineers have some influence on it.
Yeah.
And I had a 2006 VRSCR, which was their, I think it was, they called it the street rod, like V-Rod street rod or something like that. Came with 15-inch shocks, first Harley to have Brembo calipers. Like, that was a fun bike.
Yeah, that was another platform that, Harley didn't abandon it. They made them for a long time, right? Like, how long? 10 years?
Yeah, I want to say like maybe even closer to 15. They held on to him for a while.
Yeah, they didn't discontinue until maybe like 5 years or 7 years ago.
Yep.
They made them for a long time. Still huge in like Europe.
Yep.
They love them. Australia, I think, too.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, I don't know. As a traditional, if you think you're a traditional Harley guy, you probably had a hard time wrapping your head around the looks of that bike. But if you're a racer like you or somebody that likes to go fast, you had no problem with it.
Oh, yeah.
The juice was worth the squeeze because they're fast bikes out the box.
Yeah, no, that was the bike that first Harley like bike that I got, as far as like VIN number wise. First street bike that I really fell in love with was a 2001 Honda RC51. So that was a V-twin super bike with hydraulic clutch. So that kind of, V-Rod and that were similar, except the Honda was a lot lighter.
Right, and you never had to work on it.
Yes.
It's the only difference. So yeah, I do a V-Rod. The dealers, there was like some dealer racing with the V-Rods.
They had like the V-Rod Destroyer, which was like a drag race kind of edition.
Super cool.
Yeah, super cool bike, like full blown drag racer, like
the dealers could borrow or buy, right, and have like a factory. It was like a spec class.
Yep.
Man, through the years, Harley's done that several times, and they don't stick with it. The XRs came from that, right? There's a few other bikes that they did that, and it's like, man, that's what made Harley cool, doing stuff like that, and getting dealerships and local privateers out to the racetrack.
Yeah.
To battle the leader bikes or just each other. Those are cool things. Cool bikes.
No, absolutely.
Cool programs.
Yeah.
That I feel like they don't have. They walk away from. Takes 10 years to get them going, really, and they walk away after 5 or 6 years. It seems like every time.
Yes, consistent.
Yeah, not consistent. Doesn't move the needle quick enough, and they abandon them. But that's a cool thing. Okay, so you're messing with V-Rods, and you're working on regular old air-cooled bikes during the day.
Yeah, and then my first real Harley was a '99 Sportster Sport.
Okay.
1200.
Yeah.
And that bike like totally like changed my perspective on Harleys. Well, I should actually reverse a little bit. Working on bikes in the garage, like doing side work, and customers allowing me to like just do things different than what I would do at the dealership, and focusing on making the bikes handle good and respond well. Just started to make me be like, oh, wow, these things can kind of feel like a Buell if you set them up correctly. And then when I got that Sportster Sport, man, I was able to set that up how I wanted. And like the first time out riding it riding it home, I had buyer's remorse. I was like, why did I even buy this thing? Like, but then I like pulled an all-nighter, like, with a bunch of takeoff parts I had, set it up real nice, and then took it out for a ride the next day and popped a wheelie on it and was just like, oh, man, like, this is cool. Like, there's something very captivating about wheeling a Harley. It's just like, wow, this isn't meant to do it, and it feels really cool doing it.
Yeah. The Sportster Sport's another cool bike that maybe Harley should have stuck with. And I had a 2000. So the one after yours, I think the only thing different was the brakes, I think.
Brakes, wheel bearings, like just a few nice upgrades.
Motors the same.
Yeah.
Dual plug heads and
Based off of Buell,
yeah,
which was
that
rad.
kind of stuff. They were cool, factory hot rod
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So and good looking bikes too. I always thought.
Dual calipers up front.
Yep. Adjustable front end.
It was like the mini FXDX.
Yeah, little adjustable rear
Mm-hmm.
shock. Came with a little taller shock, I think, than most bikes of that era, most Sportsters. So yeah, those are cool bikes. I could see how that would continue to draw you in to the fold.
Yeah.
Of, performance Harley Davidsons, if there's such a thing, which I think you've proved there is.
Yep.
With all the stuff that you're doing in your shop. Speaking of doing stuff in your shop, so now you got this little shop in Temecula. You worked at the dealership. I kind of know the story. I'll fill people in. You were doing stuff on the side. The dealership got wind, right? And they might have been slowing down too.
Well, the dealership always knew I was doing work on the side, but in this particular case, I was actually starting to build all the logistics of a business and got a shop space and the getting it set up and ready to make that transition. They just caught wind of it before I told them about everything I had going on, but they knew I was doing side work, and I just had to do it really respectfully, not try to
Steal
farm off of their
yeah.
land or anything, So, but yeah, probably ever since I got into the dealerships, I'd always been doing side work. It was one thing that almost even got me fired back in I think 2010 or 2011 was doing side work, and luckily they didn't fire me for it.
Yeah, but you're doing stuff like building guys' motors and
yeah,
kind of stuff that dealerships don't want to do anyway.
I mean,
put your motor back to spec, but not build you a hot rod motor, really. Right?
Yeah.
Unless it's some off the shelf screaming chicken stuff.
Well, those can be good too. But yeah, no, I mean, I do all sorts of stuff out of the house. I mean, shoot, sometimes I remember telling the guy who was trying to fire me, I was like, look, man, I'm trying to buy a house. So, how many times have I come to you to ask for a raise? I'm going to buy a house either with your help or without your help. So, then they just chalked it up to a misunderstanding.
Yeah, they helped you out by kicking you out?
No, they kept me around, but they just, turned more of a blind eye to what I was doing outside of the dealership. So.
Okay, but the day came when they said you're done here.
Oh, right? Yeah,
and you had your shop kind of already set up, ready to go.
Well, no, so that particular day, fast forward to what was that, 2019? Yeah, that was hey, I caught a little birdie told me, you're opening up your own shop, and I just looked at the owner at the time and was like, well, that little birdie didn't lie to you. That is my plan. That's what I'm doing, and I'd like to leave you as well off as possible, if I need to train anyone up, give you a good notice. So I tried to leave on very respectful terms, and kept me around for another 45 days and to try to get the parts department all in order and, hand the keys off. But yeah, I literally left the dealership one day and then turned key to open the shop the next day.
Cool. What year was that?
2019.
2019. Okay.
Yep. July of 2019.
That was when you opened the doors at the same spot you're in right now, right?
Yep.
Same suite. Only now you've got the suite next door as well, so you've doubled in size. And when you started off, what were your primary offerings to the customers? What were you specializing in when you got started?
A lot of service and repair kind of stuff. I already had a good reputation for building motors out of the garage, so there's quite a few motor builds, but tire changes, services, things of that nature.
Picks and shovels.
Yeah, I even had your FXR in there for some oil leaks or something.
Yep.
But yeah, that was the primary focus, just doing handlebars, suspension, just stuff like that. And then, yeah, it's kind of evolved into something else now. So
yeah, right around when was the when did the M8 start getting produced?
2017.
2017. So that stuff, that motor been out a couple of years. You're familiarizing yourself with that. How did you stay up to date with like all the, like that's a new motor. You hadn't gone to school for 10 years at that point.
Yeah.
A bit longer.
Just
by doing it, taking it apart, figuring it out.
Just by doing it, because when the M8s even came out, I was a parts manager, so I wasn't in the service department anymore. So I'd kind of just go over to the service department every now and then just to like hang out with some of the techs and, get pointers from them on how they're doing what. And then just even working on them in the garage at home, just trial by error.
Trial by error. You were selling the parts that dudes were using to hop them up or fix them. So you were familiarizing yourself with weak points and areas that could be made better.
Yeah, or I would see like the service bulletins come through a lot, so you get a good idea from, the inside factory information on, what they're having problems with.
Yeah, so you grandfathered in a little bit to that since you've been working, for Harley when those motors were produced, and then you open your own shop, and still a lot of, probably 2019, a lot of twin cam still on the road, but it was quickly changing, right? With the soft tails coming out.
The
M8s, like that's a powerful motor with a lot of potential. I think you were one of the guys that saw a lot of that potential early on and started doing stuff to make those things, fast and still keep the reliability.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, the M8's had a ton of potential.
So now you're still doing a lot of hop-up M8 stuff, not as much twin cam stuff just because there's just not as many out there. Someone has a new soft tail, they want to make it go fast. What's the first thing you recommend?
Cam and a tune.
Cam and a tune.
Yeah. Upgrading the cam and a good tune, and then, there's also intake features that can drastically help out. And then, of course, like an exhaust can be very beneficial. But the easiest way to wake up the M8s is a cam and a tune.
Cam and a tune. So now Casey's offering, he's got a dyno over there. When did you get your dyno?
I got the dyno about little over 3 years ago now. I purchased it probably in, I think, middle of 21, but didn't it was on back order for like 6 or 8 months. So I didn't even get it set up till like January of 22.
Okay.
So only been tuning for about 3 years. But man, did I run with it. I was in a big, I don't want to say debt, but like I took on a big financial responsibility by like getting it, and I'd been making my payments on it for like 8 months waiting for it to show up. So I just had to run with it, and and it was quite the learning course, that's for sure.
Yeah, is it? Excuse me for being naive. Is it a popular thing for people to offer tunes but not use a dyno in conjunction with it? Because it seems like something like that is right. Guys buy a tuner.
Oh yeah.
They say the bike is tuned, but it hasn't been dynoed, so it's probably not reaching its full potential, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of times where people can get just like a flash map or a can map, as they call it. So although they get these parts put in their bike, the mapping on it could still have lots of room for improvement. And then also sometimes too, even if a bike has been tuned by somewhere with the dyno, doesn't always mean that the customer is super satisfied with how the bike's running.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of times where I get bikes in and I retune them just due to lack of satisfaction, for the customer. So
yeah, why do you think that happens? Why aren't customers happy? What did the other shops seemingly do wrong? Not listen to the customer's response, or just bolt a bunch of stuff on and put a tune on it and it's not popping? It must be good. It's faster. I spend a bunch of money. It's got to be faster.
I can just say from my own personal experiences, because prior to getting the dyno, I used to have to take bikes to go get tuned, and I'll just use my my own Dyna as an example. It had been tuned in the past, and man, the only time it felt fun to ride is just getting on a freeway or being wide open on the freeway, riding around town. It was just, it would sneeze. It was grumpy. Like it just,
I had a girlfriend like that once.
yeah, it was just an unenjoyable riding experience, you know? And when I tune a bike, I put a lot of focus on where you're actually riding the bike, you know? Like, especially like lower RPMs or
Tailored to the kind of riding the person is trying to do. If someone says, man, I'm going to ride interstate, okay, let's set it up like this. Hey, man, I want to ride Ortega or Topanga every weekend. Okay, let's set it up like this. Hey, this thing's only going to the track. These are all three very different scenarios, right? So,
yeah, and even in all those scenarios, I still feel like my tuning's like consistent between all three. I just spend a lot of time to hit the right data points to where that bottom end just feels like a 450 dirt bike. It just hits hard, you know. Usually, if I'm trying to tailor it for someone who's using the bike to commute, you know, I might make certain air fuel ratios inspire better fuel economy, you know, and then if the guy's out on the track, you know, might spend a little more time in the higher RPMs where they're riding it. But I mean, I just take a lot of time to get that tune dialed in, get the data that's needed, and, you know, just offer a really good riding experience.
yeah, I was at Casey's shop before this, and he was showing me some of his tune sheets on various new bikes, M8s mostly, right? That seems to be the lion's share of your customers these days with the tunes, would you say?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, M8s, and you're putting some big numbers on some of those bikes if the guy wants to pay for the privilege, right?
Oh, yeah, yep.
150 foot-pounds over.
Yep. Yeah, it's you know, some of these bikes, you know, just on regular pump gas, you can be getting 160 foot-pounds of torque with 150 plus horsepower with the right combination of parts, and it's still just a easy, enjoyable, rideable bike.
Yeah, that's still a rideable bike. It seems like overkill. You know, the brakes and the suspension can keep up.
Yeah, it just depends on, you know, like, depends on the rider.
Yeah. Well, some of the other services you've gotten into, you know, after the dyno is your frame alignment. Right? And
Yes.
that's I think something that you specialize in that still a lot of guys aren't. It's kind of a newer thing for Harleys, I believe. You know, I bet it's been going on in leader bikes and metric stuff for a long time, but in the Harley world, probably not so much, right?
Yeah, well, in the Harley world, there on the rubber mounted chassis, you can do drivetrain alignments, and there's been barbaric ways to do it with like big pieces of like steel or whatever.
Oh yeah, welding rod and
Yeah,
yeah.
you know. So there's this new age way of doing it with like lasers and just like more professional grade tools. So I actually got into the alignment stuff partially because of the dyno, because I was making these bikes, you know, just much faster than they came in, and I was starting to get some feedback from customers like, hey, after you tune my bike, it's wobbling above, you know, triple digit speeds. And I'm like, well, before I tuned your bike, it couldn't even do those speeds. So it's not the tune making your bike wobble. So
Yeah, to expose other weaknesses on the Harley Davidsons.
Yeah.
That either come from the factory or shade tree mechanics like myself. You know, you could have a shock spacer reversed, you know, and it'll make a big difference, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. All the little OCD details.
All that little stuff adds up, and especially when you back it up with a big motor, you know, those problems expose themselves quicker.
Well, yeah, or you don't even need a big motor. You know, a properly tuned bike, whether it just has a pipe and an air cleaner or all sorts of upgrades, can exceed some speeds that you didn't even think was possible on a Harley. So it's all about that tune.
Right. So the frame straightening thing, the frame alignment, that's going good, because that's something I think to sell that to a customer, you have to educate them first, and I don't feel like that's something most of us have ever heard of in the Harley world, where you know about it in like a body shop you might know that does frame alignment on cars that have been crashed. But you would think your motorcycle's new and it's perfect, but is it?
Nope. There's lots of. I'd say like 9 out of 10 bikes come in and they're off on the drivetrain alignment, and just for some of the listeners, when your powertrain's misaligned, that all translates to the rear wheel. So whether it's tilted to the left, tilted to the right, your rear wheel ends up being tilted that way. So there's lots of times where a client might say my bike's easier to make a left-hand turn than a right-hand turn, or you could just even look at tire tread wear, and there's you can look at the rear tire and you can really see it's there's wear far on the outside of one side but not the other, and it's typically because the wheels tilted in that direction. So once you get the bike properly aligned, it can make the bike feel 100 pounds lighter, much more nimble. The handling is more consistent between the two different turning directions, and the overall riding experience is just it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, my take on that stuff for a long time was that it's a big, dumb, slow Harley. That stuff doesn't matter. But I think we learned with our Frijole off-road bike, since it is a big, dumb, slow Harley, that stuff actually I think matters more than on like say a dirt bike or whatever, because the consequences are they come quicker. Really, you notice the problems quicker, and they come at a higher price. When there's an issue. Maybe it's just eating tires, or maybe it's, a bike that's hard to ride, or you crash because it's impossible to ride. So I think that stuff's a little bit more important even in the Harley-Davidson world. Same with suspension, you might not think it, but I think it all adds up to a better performing motorcycle. And without it, if you don't know, then you don't know what you're missing. But having a bike that's set up nicely makes a difference.
The riding experience. You blend all that together and you get a great riding experience, and it just makes you want to ride the bike more.
Yeah. No, when a bike's a bear, you don't want to. I got a dirt bike back there. It's hard to start. I don't want to ride it. Got some other bikes that are easy to start and ride nice, and make me want to go on a long trip. My wife's ST that you put in a lot of work on, that's a bike that's fun to ride, and I want to get on the freeway and go to Baja or go to Sacramento or take a long trip, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's, I think, the difference in a bike that runs and performs well and one that doesn't.
And it's comfortable. That bike is super comfortable.
Yeah, I always say it. I think Harley got that one right. It's the first bike they got really close to being great out of the box since, maybe the T-Sport or something like that. So 20 years almost since they made a bike that personally excited me, Maybe the Pan Am's up there, but not as much as that ST. It just looks good and got a bunch of good stuff on it, and not a bunch of baloney,
Yes.
So I'm a fan of that bike. I'm a fan of the Softail platform. I think they've done really well. Being as that you work on a lot of the M8s, would you call that your favorite motor to work on now, or would you you're still a twin cam lover deep down, or
I'd
you got
say
a soft spot for Evo Sportster motors? What's your favorite motor to work on? Or your favorite motor ever, Harley?
I think to work on the twin cam, just because I don't have to deal with the oil lines that the M8 has. But I would say I like the M8s and the twin cams pretty equally.
Yeah.
The M8s are super fun riding experience. I love the power they put out, but I mean, a properly built twin cam has just a little different soul to it.
It does have a little more soul.
Yeah.
Yeah, the M8 is almost a metric bike, you know what I mean? It's a little the counterbalance, right? The counterbalance super smooth, and that's cool, but it definitely doesn't. Yeah, you lose a little bit of soul with some of
that. The Evos I try to sidestep just because I don't like dealing with the paper gaskets and stuff like that. So I just stick to the twin cams and the M8s.
Nice. Okay. Well, you said the oil lines is one of the reasons. Well, speaking of oil, is there a difference between synthetic and traditional oil?
Yes, and
does it matter? What do you like? This is a hotly contested debate still in 2025.
So whether it's synthetic or mineral oil, the key component to both of them is to change your oil more frequently, especially on a Harley, because it's no matter how you like classify it, it's an air-cooled motor.
Yeah.
It's got fins on the motor. It's air-cooled.
Yeah, even though they're liquid cooled a little bit now, the oil's it's still oil cooling it.
Yeah.
It's not coolant.
And for me, I like to base synthetic oil or mineral oil, which would be conventional oil, on the type of crank bearing the motor has. So if it has a roller bearing crank bearing, conventional oil. If it's got a plain bearing crank bearing, synthetic oil.
What motors have what bearings in them?
So all the Harleys, I'm pretty sure, are roller bearing. Okay. Like they're tractor motors still.
Right.
You know, so the conventional oil will help give better traction to that bearing, and you know where some synthetic oils could promote bearing skate, where the bearing's not actually spinning. When you have a plain bearing motor, it's the oil is the bearing, so that's tighter tolerances. So synthetic oil can have a much better advantage on those kinds of motors.
It's better with the heat. And
they're just those tighter tolerances, you know, like there's not an actual mechanical bearing moving. The oil pressure creates the bearing surface, you know. So I don't know, that's just my own thought process. So
it's kind of depends on what motor and
yeah. And just regardless of what oil you're using, just change it. Change it every 2,500 to 3,000 miles on these Harleys. Like, don't do the 5,000 mile service intervals. You'll just you'll rapidly increase motor failure by doing those long services. Go that long. Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, when you change your oil frequently, you notice other problems.
That's true.
And those problems, you know, best case might just be an inconvenience or cause stuff to wear out prematurely. Worst case, could kill you or, you know, cause a wreck or leave you on the side of the road, you know, so.
Or wreck your wallet with repairs.
Wreck your wallet. That's a thing that happens too, you know, so it's there's nothing wrong with changing your oil frequently. And, man, it's still not a super expensive thing to do either, right? You know, it's pretty fairly priced preventive maintenance. Yeah. Especially on new bikes, you know. I got a friend who works on motorcycles. His name's Rico Fadri. I use the term friend loosely, but one of the best things Rico does when you bring him a bike to work on is he ends up test riding it a bunch. You know, when you get your bike back, there's a lot of stuff that's been fixed or addressed, or at least he's made you known, you know, let you be aware of what's going on. And I think I see you all over town doing the same thing on customers' bikes. You got a favorite test ride loop that you wish to disclose on this podcast, or is it something you want to keep secret? Duluth, yep. I knew you were going to say it. Yeah.
I love
still
riding
a secret
up
spot.
I love riding up there.
You could still open it up on that long, right here above our shop. You can open it up, and then there's plenty of twisties. It's a bummer they closed the little short route, you know, because then you could go in one way and come back the other way.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Duluth.
Yeah, Duluth to Santa Rosa and then loop back down the 15.
Yeah, yep. That's what I do too. It's always my shakedown.
Yeah, that's a great ride.
It eases into it. If there's any problems, hopefully they've exposed themselves by then before you get on the freeway, and a little problem is a big problem. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd also even like to go back to the oil changes of run a oil cooler, like especially one by Ultra Cool. That makes a huge difference because a lot of times, especially on these M8s, they're very misleading in how well they're advertised. They say they're oil cooled. They come with an oil cooler, but that oil cooler only cools the oil that goes around the exhaust ports. So there's a lot of times your engine oil temperature is like 320 or above. And once your oil temperature gets that hot, it's hard for the motor to get below that temperature. So by running an oil cooler, like especially one like an Ultra Cool, it can keep your engine oil temperature around 235, which will drastically prolong the life of all your internal components.
Yeah, you're not going to lose power. Those Ultra Cools that you talked to me into one on my wife's bike, it's not like a traditional oil cooler where it's just, you know, a radiator basically. It's actually a radiator with a couple little computer fans that are controlled by a thermostat.
Yep.
So they kick on and off when they need to be, and increases your oil capacity a little bit, which may or may not help too much. But yeah, it's a good preventive maintenance part too that helps extend the life of the bike, and especially you said you're from Phoenix, Arizona, Tucson. It's blazing out there. We're from SoCal. It's damn near as hot here as it is there. And you're sitting a little bit of traffic on these bikes or long distance freeway rides, man, those things get piping hot.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they get piping hot. So that is a good little tech tip from Casey at Cafes Customs.
Yeah,
ultra cool, made here in Marietta as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
That and their PC Racing oil filter that goes with it. It's made by the same company. Those are phenomenal because then you get to actually see what's going on inside your oil, as well as your paper filters will go into a bypass mode above 4,000 RPM, meaning it's not filtering the oil above 4,000 RPM, where these filters don't go into a bypass mode till 7,500 RPM.
Okay. Yeah, that's a big difference.
Yeah, you're getting constantly filtered oil with those. So.
All right, good tips. What about a long ride that you like to do on occasion? You've done it a few times, or that you want to do? Is any
the 395?
Yeah. Okay, we were talking about that earlier. I like the 395 too.
As far as you can go up to 395 is great.
Yep.
North of Victorville area.
Yep. Yeah, you got to get out of the city of unlimited possibilities, Adelanto. And then, it gets good quick. Cross four corners, past Ridgecrest, and then start to open it up and ease into some of that California gold.
Yep.
Yeah, man, it's good. I like the 395 too. It's for me, it's one of the few places I can tell my blood pressure is going down. Get up there, it's pretty good. The coming home on the 395 is terrible because you start to ease into the heat. Flynn's our podcast technician over there and/or producer. Yeah, one time him and I were coming down 395, dude. We ever stop at every gas station. I pour a gallon of water on him. He pours a gallon of water on me. By about the time we pull out of the gas station, we're dry, but it's just blazing, and you're just heading back down into SoCal. The smog, the Sprinter vans, the less than spiritual people on that road, is just that part of the 395 coming home stinks. It makes me want to turn around and head back up. But yeah, 395 is pretty good, and especially on I used to love ride my FXR on 395, and the newer bikes where you can kind of open it up a little bit. 395's hard to beat.
Yeah, no, I love it up there.
Hard to beat, or it's its sister highway on the other side of the Sierras is the 49, and it's a little more curvy and a little slower, but equally as good as far up as you can take it. Cafes Customs on Instagram, you've got some, you often don't talk about just the motorcycles you're riding and working on, but you have this saying, it's habits, not chores, and you'll show how you take a day off to clean the shop, and I was in your shop earlier today, and it didn't smell like Fabuloso, but it smelled like some sort of cleaning agent, bleach or something, and it's a clean shop, and I think if your mechanic's shop doesn't smell like some sort of cleaning agent, maybe you got the wrong kind of mechanic. At least if it's a motor guy like yourself, I know I frequent the transmission shop down the street. It's the only transmission shop I've ever been in. It doesn't smell like gear oil, which is hard to do. It does smell like Fabuloso, and that's why I frequent that transmission shop, because they do that kind of work, white glove with kind of the dirtiest substance around oil and motors, but habits, not chores. Do you steal that?
Did I steal it? Or?
Yeah, that line.
I don't think so. I think
I'm gonna steal it from you. I got the website habitsnotchores.com. Flynn, get that right now. Namecheap.com.
Trademark it.
Yeah. Too late. I got it. That's mine. You stole that from me. Yeah, I like it. That's part of the reason I like you. You got these little things that you do that I think make a customer feel good about the service you provide, albeit an expensive service.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite things about even building a motor is taking the time to wire wheel clean all the hardware, especially if we're just reusing the factory hardware, which I really like the factory hardware, but just making it look really clean and, not leaving any tool marks on any of the Allen head socket bolts, and just, you could do a whole like crank up motor build, but you would never even know the bike's taken apart unless there's some powder coat features.
And it's yeah. Once again, I'm not a mechanic, but I work on things to try to keep them on the road and not mess them up. And when I do mess them up, I take them to a pro like you or Rico or Rouser. But it feels nice when you clean a bolt and you put it in its designated hole and it goes in smoothly, and you tighten it, close to the recommended torque setting, and it just feels good. It's therapeutic. There's something about it, and I agree with you that Harley, one of the other things, Harley through the years have done a few things perfect, like their paint schemes on a lot of bikes. They nail it, a lot of stuff. They use quality hardware. That stuff, in the 40s and the 50s, they're using hardware from a company called Chandler Products. It was good stuff then, and they've seemed to have kept that mostly, that high standard for, little stuff that actually is big stuff, right? Hardware is a big deal. Go. You can go to the swap meet and you can buy the hardware by the pound. You ever seen those guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, don't buy the hardware by the pound. You know what I mean? Don't. It's not good for your kid's swing set, and it's definitely not good for your Harley, So, yeah, I like some of those habits, not chores, that you partake in.
Yes, it just try to provide the quality that I could only hope for myself if I were to take something somewhere to have it worked on.
Yeah. Well, I think you do a good job about, again, those 169 Google reviews don't lie. Hoping to be 200.
Yeah.
You said hitting that 200 mark was your goal in 2025. You got any other goals?
Maybe come up with another part or two. That's been something that's been fun that I wasn't expecting when I opened the shop, was to actually be coming up with some parts that are just original ideas. And, I don't really have anything in the works right now, but most of what I've come up with over the last 2 years has just been, like all of a sudden I just find an area that could be improved on a bike and, bring a part to fruition. Yeah,
all the parts a lot of the parts that Casey makes that end up on your bike, if you take it there, they're problem solvers. There's something the factory didn't do right or could have improved on, and didn't for whatever reason, and you've, found a way to make a nice part to make the riding experience better. The stuff that I've seen you do, like on the ST, is like the spacers for the foot pegs, the routing of the oil lines for the
air cleaner.
Yeah, the air cleaner. Just little touches like that, and some of the parts you've made to help some of the guys running chain drives on the soft tails you're showing me. Some of the hardware that you sell that is better than Harley stuff, because there's some stuff that comes on a Harley hardware wise that ain't as desirable as you would wish these days, right?
Yep.
So little stuff like that.
Yeah. Just I just really like a good riding experience out of the motorcycle, whether it's a highway cruiser, a track bike, or a stunt bike. Like, I feel like there's always a way to just make it a good riding experience. That's usually my goal with whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
And reliable. Like, I just want to set the bike up for someone to where all they have to do is add gas and bring it back for the next service.
Yeah, and I think the customers, your repeat customers, I know some of them. I've sent a lot of guys over there, and the older I get, the less likely I am to recommend anyone for anything, But you're one of the guys I'll break that rule for, because I send those guys, and they're guys that appreciate the time that you save them from either working on their own bikes, or the time you save them from being broke down on the road, or the better experience that they're going to get riding a bike that's tuned, that runs good, that is fun. There is people that appreciate that. There's some of us that don't shop by price. They're just like, man, I work all week. I got a Saturday and a Sunday off, and I want to go on this trip, and I need my bike to be in good condition. And you've got a few of those customers, a lot actually, and you're bragging about today how a lot of those guys, they bring you one bike, and then they bring you their other bike, and they bring you their wife's bike, and you've got their whole fleet in there sooner or later, and you got them all tuned up. And so those guys appreciate the time that you give them back in their schedule to go have fun, on a cool bike.
Yeah, with a couple of surprises when they pick it up.
Yeah, one of them being the bill, usually. I like to ride. Casey likes to ride. Casey, would you like to ride to lunch right now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go eat because I'm hungry. I have to go to the bathroom, and I'm out of questions.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on the show.
Out. No, we appreciate you coming out. Flynn's just getting the hang of this podcasting thing, but maybe he can get your Instagram on the podcast. It'll be on YouTube. And we can drop a couple guys to your business so they can leave you a nice Google review.
Yes, thank you.
Hopefully we can go to lunch right now and find a place that would worthy of a good Google review from us.
Yeah.
All right, Casey, let's get out of here.
All right, thank you. Thank you,
guys.
Flynn.
Thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Parts and Labor Podcast brought to you by Biltwell. You got any feedback? You got any questions? Send us a voice recording or an email at pod@biltwellinc.com. That's pod@biltwellinc.com.